Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
Yeah. Roberta in the truth zone, mic hitting raw. Spotlight shining, she exposing the flaw. Debunking the myth, breaking their facade. This is Glass City, respect the squad. On these NYC blocks where the skyline flex big. Roberta Glass slicing lies with a truth rig. Innocence frosters, your stories unravel. She's a map through the madness of gritty gravel. Glass don't bend and facts don't break. She's the storm that's called, you feel the quake. Exposing tales stitched with crooked seams. Justice in the lens, shattered fake dreams. Screams about killers, painted heroes in disguise. She burning propaganda with fire in her eyes. No glamour for the guilty, she call it straight. She backs victims, the voice stay awake. Stats and receipts, no spin, no clutter. Cold cases whisper, she cuts through the mutter. Truth's her tempo, don't confuse the beat. She's standing for the real while you taking a seat. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to play. She's glass hard, break the false and save the day. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time.
Oh my Lord. What a way to start. Hello. What a start. Hey, Taterbug, Iowa, Deb H, Mary Ann, thank you. Truth and Justice. I got it eventually. Mr. C, hello. How is everybody? Devastating day for Karen Reed today. What a way, this is the thing about these psychos or psychopaths. And I'm talking about Karen Reed and her lawyers. They never know when to stop and rest on their gains. They're so mad. They're just like continuing to push forward when if they stopped, they would have done better than to come today. So what I'm talking about, of course, is the forensic expert. It's talking about the black box data in Karen Reed's car that shows that she had an incident or a collision. And that corresponds to when John O'Keefe's phone stopped moving forever. So this is very bad for the defense that says that he went in the house and then he got beat up and then he got thrown out hours later. But, I'm getting to the real bombshell for today. So yesterday they made I would say a small little point saying, you lied, not to the court, came into the court and said, look, I don't have a college degree, but on his LinkedIn, it said he did, and my point was this isn't, it's not like he lied to this court and said, I have a degree. And they revealed in cross-examination that he had lied to the jury. That's very bad. You lose credibility. But I didn't think I thought it was very different. So then they came in today and they hammered home. They found some old case on redirect. I think they sort of played chess thinking, let me go backwards. So they again hammered this point home about this that this expert who's had 10 years in the field and testified in other cases, unlike Marie Russell, who's never testified in a case before and is totally an attention-seeking, dark personality from off the street. And is basically a self-appointed expert, just like I'm a cat expert. She's a dog bite expert. So Alessi just hammered home again. I'll spare you the footage of it again about this. You don't have a degree and blah, blah, blah. And you were in this case. And I thought, oh, this is going to be really bad. Here he lied to another jury about having a degree. No. So what happened is that, say this is back in, say, I couldn't exactly get the date, but it was like 2022. And he wrote the expected graduation date. I'm graduating 2023. I'll have this degree, the way you write it. So the date is in the future. So it looks bad looking back at the past, but he never represented himself as someone getting that degree, not someone who had that degree in this other case. And that was their big win. So what it looks like for the defense is that they are extremely snobby and want to hammer home this working class guy who's married, has a family, and who, despite not having a degree, has risen in his field and managed to master and get a lot of other kinds of certifications besides a college degree and still succeed without a college degree. It makes it look like there's some kind of elitist snob. And it looks like they're personally unpleasant. They should have quit while they were ahead yesterday, my feeling. But right after that, I'll show you Hank Brennan's redirect, how he redirected it. And thought it was very good. Karen Reed's still crying ambush. We'll get into that. They're still upset. I think the crux of their case was the prosecution not catching exactly this phone drift. So there's a difference in time between John O'Keefe's phone and the black box data, and that really messed them up. I mean, you'll have to see how angry Karen Reed is. And I mean, you only had to see Alessi in court screaming Rule 14 violations and ambush. The reason why he was allowed to go on for a day and a half on cross-examination is because Judge Cannoni allowed him to because of this amendment. So basically what it means is that the crux of the report didn't change, it just the times changed. And they were going to exploit that time difference. So it messes up their expert. It messes up some kind of alternative story for the defense. And you only have to see Karen Reed, how angry she was, to see how they messed it up. But here's Hank Brennan coming in on redirect. Here's how you clean up on redirect. Take a listen. By the way, just before I get into that, let me just make sure. Aidan Carney, this is what I've been saying all along. I've not been convinced that he's going to get convicted of anything. 3 of his conspiracy charges he announced on X. 2 witness intimidation charges and 1 picketing charge have been dismissed. So 5 of his, I think it's something like 16 or 18 charges have been dismissed. So why I was so sure about that is because I've been talking about innocence fraud or researching it for years. And seldom is there any, I mean, I've seen the criminals and the murderers get away with things, and while the victims get re-victimized so many times. I just haven't been convinced in Very Blue, Massachusetts that there's really the will for him to get convicted of anything when they treat, killers so lightly, which is are considered one of our worst crimes, not the worst. So Here is Karen Reed, day 19. Hold on one second, guys. Oh, please hold. And here's this brilliant redirect by Hank Brennan. And right after this, a tape gets played, or a video clip, a media clip, let's put it that way, media clip, showing my age, media clip of Karen Reed confirming that she knew the time of John O'Keefe's death, meaning she knew that her collision was deadly. And she knew he died between this time and that time. Ideally, according to her defense theory, she shouldn't know the time of death at all. I just saw him go into the house. I can't know what happened to him. And then he got thrown out in the snow. I'm so certain. But instead, she says, oh, yeah, we know he died within a minute of between 12:25 and 12:30. And we know from the black box data that she backed into him at 12:31. I think it's in 47 seconds approximately. So that's when his phone stopped moving. Right after that. So it kind of says to that she knew he was dead, that she knew that the injuries were fatal, that he did look mortally wounded, and she left. She began covering up her crime. If she didn't, she should have, but she knows exactly when she hit him. And she knows that that's what caused his death. Free Karen readers aren't getting it. It was a bomb, unlike any other that's been played in these clips. That no one had seen that clip before, and it was massive. So whatever little wins, if I'm totally wrong and they made massive wins today with this expert and the jury discredits everything he says, Karen Reed is telling the jury that he's correct in his timings. She's like, yeah, I hit him between, within a minute of when Karen Reed said, 12:25, 12:30. So give or take 6 minutes. She knows when she hit him. She's like, that's approximate. She's not going to be like, I hit him at 12:30, 1:47. She's going to be like approximately like 12:25, 12:30, around there. That's how people's memories work. She's telling the jury that he's right. So none of this stuff about his credentials matters. Does everybody get that? I don't think the free Karen readers, they're like, that's not what she's saying at all. A perfect example of a man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest. Oh, no, she wasn't saying that. That's not what she was saying. Really? Because at 12:25 to 12:30, he hadn't even walked in the home yet. She thinks he was killed immediately and thrown out immediately in the snow and died? Wasn't it a fight? And then they threw him out and he died overnight, knocked out after being punched out, right? After going 9 rounds, as Yannetti says, with Mike Tyson, with these bad police, corrupt policemen in Massachusetts. Isn't that the defense's theory? Devastating. I mean, you could see the look on Karen Reed's face after that. The defense was glum, depressed. It was a devastating clip. The most bombshell, goosebumpy moment yet in this trial, I thought. Let me know what you thought. Here's a little bit of Burgess's redirect by Hank Brennan. Take a look.
Sir, when I asked you about your first report regarding the protocol, you told us October 10th, followed by your supplement on the 17th. You did not remember the day that you first received any information offered by Mr. DeSorga. Is there a document that may refresh your memory?
Yes, there is.
May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
So Hank Brennan went very much like I said. Did you lie to any jury? Did you lie to this jury? No. Did you lie to any jury? No. Did you ever present yourself in court as someone who had graduated college? No. I mean, that's the real, I mean, is there a crime for lying? I mean, is it a crime? It's a crime to lie under oath, but is it a crime to lie on LinkedIn? And then they tried to say that the degree doesn't exist. And he's like, oh, no, it does. So I don't know what the real story is there, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I mean, free Karen readers are really just grasping onto straws because Karen Reed already just backed him up. And I wondered why Hank Brennan was kind of taking it a little bit laid back with the objections yesterday with all this was going on and wasn't flying up every 2 minutes to a sidebar the way the defense does. It's like he's got something up his sleeve. And this, what he had up his sleeve was that media clip of Karen Reed saying, yeah, that's when he died.
I want you to read this. I just want you to look at it. You can look at any part of it. Okay. And look up when you're done, then I'll ask you a question. Okay. Does that refresh your memory the first time that you saw any information provided by Mr. Disorga?
Yes, it does.
And when was that?
November 7th of 2024.
Before or after you recognized the megabyte oversight?
That would be after.
So they're saying, well, you used our discovery to basically amend your findings. It's like, no, I didn't. It's all a mess. It's all a mess.
I want to go back to where we were at before we went to lunch. You had described 2 tech stream events. I want to focus on the first tech stream event, and that is the tech stream event relative to the 3-point turn.
Okay.
That's another one of the defense's big owns, is that they didn't call the 3-point turn where Karen Reed misses the turnoff. They didn't call that a collision. That's their big own. Their big own. Hey, Manny, what? KR might drink and take pills tonight in an attempt to escape justice. She'll never. She's too narcissistic to hurt herself. I love the Roberta Glass family hugs. How will law tubers spin this? He'll spin it as a huge win, the way Court TV is running with it. This was some big own. It's a huge. I don't think it'll be missed on a jury. And I think that there will be some members of the jury, not all. I don't know who's on the jury. None of this matters if there's free Karen readers on the jury. Excuse me for repeating myself every day, but none of this matters. If there are free Karen readers on the jury, you could show them a video of Karen Reed committing the crime and they would say it's CGI'd. Michael Proctor created it. It's AI, whatever else, you know? So they're never going to vote to convict. So that may be the case. There may be free Karen readers on the jury. We may be going to another hung jury. Not convinced that we're not. However, just in real people land with a fair jury, juries understand when defendants say something really damning like they did here. Hey, Karen words will be your undoing. I think so too. I've said it since the beginning. I was asked on Court TV, what are you looking forward to? I said, I'm looking forward to Karen Reed's. I said, that's going to be the star of opening statements. Karen Reed's own self-incriminating and contradictory statements. That's the star of opening statements. Opening day. And it was. I mean, to have Karen Reed narrate her own trial has been absolutely just devastating for the defense. Because if you can't, I mean, basically, if you're a free Karen reader, you have to trust Karen Reid's own words. Except when she says statements that are contradictory or self-incriminating. Then you ignore those contradictions and ignore that she just incriminated herself a zillion times in this case. It's because, in my feeling, why she does it is because she really wants to brag that she did this. This is a moment that she's proud of. She wants to tell everyone she did it. She still hates the John O'Keefe and the O'Keefe family. And this is the ultimate expression of her power. Kind of dark, but that's the way it is. Thanks, Karen. Thanks, guys. All right, back to this incredible day in court. I'm just going to show you a little bit of this, but still give you a little idea of a good redirect by Hank Brennan.
Okay.
You had described that there was a timestamp 154. Just to reacquaint us, can you very briefly tell us the significance of 154?
Sure. So GPS point 154 is a GPS point that occurs just before the 3-point turn starts.
And why is it important to identify when that turn starts and when it ends?
Sure. So what we're specifically looking at comparing is the end of the 3-point turn. That's going to be the text stream event ending, which is near the end of the 3-point turn, as well as the end of the 3-point turn as recorded in Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone.
Was it important to identify the beginning and end of that event to come to a conclusion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty regarding the variance between the text stream data and Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, there was. So we can't say, we can pinpoint approximately when the 3-point turn ends based on the GPS data. But best practice would be to use a range of time. So the range we're using is the time that the 3-point turn starts to the time that the 3-point turn ends.
Could we have from Mr. Burgess's PowerPoint number 41, please? Is this part of your presentation helpful in explaining the beginning and end point of that 3-point turn?
It does. So if you recall yesterday, the heading change, first heading change from a general north heading is depicted by that green shading circle.
Could you use your pointer, please?
Sure, yes.
Ms. Gilman, can you enlarge just a little bit?
So again,
So just about 3 minutes too. Oh, darn it. Sorry, guys. This is sped up. I think we can get back to where we were. Oh, Alessi. I mean, this was like a massive, right before. I think we were right around here, weren't we? Forgive me if I'm a little ahead.
This timestamp 154 and getting into the minute detail of when it started and ended. One of your charts, does it also show it numerically?
Yes, it does.
Can we have number 40, please? Before we discuss this again, where did you get the information to put in this chart?
Sure. So this is coming from Mr. O'Keefe's iPhone. Specifically, it's coming from a SQLite database that is recording locations as he's using the Waze app to navigate.
Is the information in this chart or diagram directly from the data?
It is directly from the data.
Is this accurate to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes, it is.
If we could zoom in just a little, we'll have to go left to right, Ms. Gilman. Start with the left. Timestamp 154. At what point in that 3-point turn does 154 represent on the left?
Yeah. So timestamp 12:23:58 or GPS point 154 is approximately 1 second before we see the heading change. If we could zoom out just a little bit more. Yep. So
Hank Brennan bringing it back to the data. Once again, away from his degrees, he's, and I think he got this. I think the last question he asked was something to the effect of, it's like right on my, he said that, did you notice the defense? And these are the kind of questions that it's kind of a dirty defense trick. Just the way that Alan Jackson said, how dare you or shame on you or whatever that, something to that effect to Proctor when he concluded his cross. Shame on you, sir, or whatever, something like that. He knew that's going to be objected to, but he knew it would stick with the jury. So Hank Brennan, I think, did similarly. He knew this would be objected to, where he says, did you notice the defense asked you a lot of questions about your, objected to your degree, but they didn't want to ask about your findings. They didn't want to challenge that. And that got objected to, but that's going to stick with the jury. So kind of a little underhanded thing that defense, but you have to remember that Hank Brennan's a former defense attorney. This is very much a defense done like a defense attorney, with these brought in hired experts. I would prefer nervous trooper Paul, just for me, the people I warm to, than Shanon Burgess or these hired guns, However, I don't think he's wrong. I don't think he's a hired gun in the way that Marie Russell is, where she's vastly wrong and there's zero methodology or science. Or McNasty Green, Richard Green, who's the forensic data expert on phones for the defense, where they had to rewrite the whole Celebrate program so that people wouldn't make the same mistake he made in reading the data. He has a criminal background of his own. So, I mean, that's a real hired gun, will say whatever you want. This is clearly, or ARCA here, or ARCA, who says that they wouldn't change their opinion if given more evidence, and only takes cherry-picked evidence handed to them and never asks the Commonwealth for more data to do their experiments, and crafts their testimony with Alan Jackson so it will be most effective for the defense. I mean, that's a real hired guns. I think the defense has tried to, in this case, spin the idea that Hank Brennan has done image management and really crafted and choreographed and directed his witnesses' statements. This may be what Alan Jackson did when he was a DA, and I'm sure that's what he does now. Say, okay, he asked Jennifer McCabe if they planned on bringing out that she was a soccer mom or sports mom, and that she taught, coach basketball to make her more likable to the jury. She's like, no, I just got in here and it really kind of backfired. I mean, there had to be one person on the jury who thought, wow, is that what these defense witnesses, they're going to do with the defense witnesses? Choreograph their testimony, script their testimony so they're more likable to the jury. She just went over the video, asked if that was me, and that was it. I didn't plan to come here and talk about my family or what I do. So, pretty interesting. So I'd rather have nervous trooper Paul, who, by the way, is exonerated by all this data. This is very much what was testified to at the first trial. It's much more specific and much more sure. But here's a little bit more of it, of the testimony of Shanon Burgess. This is the forensic expert for the Commonwealth, and in his redirect by Hank Brennan.
We see the heading change represented in green. That's a heading change to 284. Before that, we've got a pretty consistent heading of 348 to 339. So that first heading change, as well as the drop in speeds, is indicative of a three-point turn maneuver.
The latitude and longitude, did that assist you in making the diagram with the circles on it?
Yes, it did.
How so?
So the latitude and longitude are the center points for each GPS point, or the center point for each circle.
There's a green highlighted row and an orange highlighted row. What's the difference between the two?
Sure. So the green highlighted row is, again, the beginning, the approximate beginning of the three-point turn. And the orange or the yellow is the approximate end of the three-point turn.
And the time between the green and the orange lines?
Approximately 8 seconds.
Is that consistent with the range that you've shown for synchronization
Yes, it is.
Point 21 or plus 21 and plus 29?
Yes, it is.
The inevitable variance that you found between the text stream data and between Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone, could you share with us to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty what that variance is?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you have an opinion about the time range in the synchronization between Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone data and the Lexus clock that shows the text stream data to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Objection, Your Honor. I appreciate an approach.
Okay, so answer that question, yes or no.
Sure. So yes, I can.
So I'll see you inside that again, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
So anyway, that's the way it went with him, putting his emphasis on his data and not his degree. What else can I show you? But let's show you the big. So right after this, so Alessi comes back and tries to hammer home more points about his degree. They're, his big own. They don't give out this degree, do they? He's like, yes, they do. I don't know what the deal is in this, university of whatever, wherever it is, somewhere in the South. I don't know what they do with their degrees, but it certainly wasn't an own for the defense. They looked petty and reaching, I thought, but I'm sure the press is going to run with it. It was a powerful cross, like they do, and downplay this part because who's going to be wanting to tune into Karen Reed news if they think it's not a mystery anymore? Karen Reed's already incriminated herself with this statement and backed up what the defense expert, what the Commonwealth expert has just testified to. Take a listen. And totally negated her own defense. This was the biggie today.
I do. I mean, I'll tell you, John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. So we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30 on the early morning of January 29th.
Play that again for those in the back.
Of the 28th, Friday morning. So we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30 on the early morning of January 29th.
Right. Either Karen Reed is a psychic or she knows his time of death within 6 minutes, or time of collision where she fatally injured him. How does she know that? Wasn't he supposed to walk in the house? She couldn't know that he was attacked right away. She couldn't know that. She couldn't know that. There's no defense for this. It's so damning. I'm sure they're going to spin some way. I'm curious to see how they're going to spin it. It is so bad for her. Anyone else have any thoughts about this? Scorpio Man says Karen convicting Karen, true. Mandy, thanks. Isn't that amazing? Crazy. So bad for Karen. But of course, Karen Reed, I mean, you can tell how bad it was that they got this amendment in, that they were going to exploit some kind of incorrect time by the Commonwealth that got corrected before trial with how angry Karen Reed was. Let's take a listen to her telling the press that it was an ambush and that Shanon Burgess is a fraud. Unlike her ARCA experts, we wouldn't talk about an ambush. The ARCA experts who were presented to the jury as unbiased, unpaid for witnesses when they were hired, retained by the defense and paid at the time of, they weren't paid yet, but they were going to get paid. They were retained at the time of that they testified, $23,925. They were keeping track of their time, what ARCA was gonna charge the defense. They were scripting their testimony. He's like, "You've never met me before." This is what Alan Jackson asked Daniel Wolf in front of the jury at the first trial. "We've never met before, right?" When he's writing emails to him, "Dear Alan." I mean, it's that bad. And they hid that and they lied with every filing that they presented ARCA as a unbiased, unpaid for, neutral witness. They lied that they couldn't talk to. That's why they couldn't hand over discovery. You want to talk about fraud? How about deleting all your text messages with your expert, the lawyers? That means Karen Reed's own lawyers deleted their text messages and most likely told Daniel Wolf to delete his text messages too, because they're all deleted on both sides. Both parties deleted their text messages because they argued the lawyers just deleted them, when all lawyers have to keep everything related to their case and their client. I mean, they think it's a loophole to say, well, there's no rule that they have to keep it with the expert witnesses, but that relates to your client. As Judge Cannoni pointed out, didn't mean she did anything about it. She just lets these frauds go on in her court. Sometimes, if it's really bad, like with ARCA witnesses the first time when it was found out they were paid and retained, they got a talking to and a warning not to lie. And then they proceeded to lie right at that very hearing again. It's wild, this case. Wild. So you want to talk about fraud, but here's Karen Reed saying ambush. So they've hid discovery with Marie Russell, George Green, and the ARCA witnesses, and now they've hid discovery and hid things from the Commonwealth twice, and permanently hid them in a way that can't be remedied. Once you get rid of those text messages, there's no way to ask questions about things that you can't know about. And they had the expert witnesses talking to the defense lawyers, and I believe Karen Reed, in a group text on Signal app, an encrypted app, the way criminals talk. I'm not saying only criminals, but there would be no need to talk on an encrypted app that auto deletes your text messages unless you're hiding something and you're trying to hide discovery from the Commonwealth. So what I think happened is they asked for this discovery. And when they knew they couldn't get out of handing over their text messages, they said, just delete them all. And we'll say we deleted them. And now we'll talk to each other on the Signal app. When they knew they were going after these in February, I believe this is when they moved on over to Signal. They can't know what we're doing. You're our star witnesses. So they'll have no way to rebut what we're going to present, which goes against the whole idea of discovery, which is, you know what the other side's going to present so you can prepare your rebuttal. Their witness hasn't even gone. I mean, they were given more time to rebut all the witnesses in this case than the Commonwealth's been given with ARCA, who's done all these new tests. And our experts going on vacation. It's craziness, wildness. It's just a mess. You know, Judge Cannoni letting all this happen in her courtroom. Scales of justice. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for supporting my work. I appreciate it. Heisenberg, that clip will give her team so many problems. I agree. I think it's devastating. Rockstar 60 says, Roberta rocks. Honest, true evidence, based, and fun. Glad I'm fun. But check out Karen Reed. Thank you. Check out Karen Reed today. I think this is today or yet. Yeah, it's today. 3 hours ago, they just released this. This is the local news in Boston.
Thank you. Now to the fifth week of testimony in the Karen Reed retrial. The defense questioning a key expert's credentials late this afternoon. Investigative reporter Ted Daniel explains why Karen Reed was not happy with what she heard in court.
On her way out of court, Karen Reed accused the prosecution of springing new information at the last minute that came through a witness named Shanon Burgess. Burgess testified data he collected from Reed's SUV and John O'Keefe's iPhone.
Anything on his credentials at all?
Yeah, it's called fraudulent.
Defense attorney Robert Alessi challenged Shanon Burgess's findings and his resume.
You want to talk fraudulent? You want to talk fraudulent? How about your attention-seeking dog bite expert? That's fraudulent. Marie Russell, how about the ARCA witnesses? That's fraudulent. Everything you did with the ARCA witnesses is fraud. How many voir dires has your team been punished with withholding evidence? How has the Commonwealth been ever punished for withholding any evidence? Never. This is DARVO at its finest. Deny, attack, reverse victim offender. Thank you, Jennifer Fried, her parents created she accused her father of preying on her sexually. They started the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, which is not even a real thing. It's just a name of a foundation. And she created that word DARVO, just a little history.
This is a third example of a document that incorrectly states that you have a Bachelor of Science when you do not.
It has errors or outdated information, correct?
Burgess says data from Reed's Lexus shows it made a 3-point turn and traveled in reverse in the midnight hour of January 29th, 2022. Burgess says the timing didn't initially match up to movements recorded by John O'Keefe's phone until he synced the clocks and put it in a new report.
Strong wants to know about the clip of Karen Reed. Were those clips obtained from unaired footage? Yes. Yes. Strangely, the defense didn't want that aired. And you have to remember, Judge Cannoni denied any of Karen Reed's own statements coming in the first trial. This time they're coming all in, and boy, what a difference it makes. So you don't have to believe the witnesses. You just have to believe Karen Reed's own words, some of them. Read between the lines. See, psychopaths, they tell a lot of lies, but they tell a lot of truth too. It's all mixed in, mixing it all up. That's Karen Reed's specialty.
Report.
Attorney Brennan represented to this court and to us just last week that he was surprised to get a report on May 8th. That was only shared with us on May 11th. And now we find out from this witness that Attorney Brennan knew this report was coming the whole time.
That's an ambush, she's going to say. That's an ambush. What's deleting over 100 text messages? What's hiding almost every piece of discovery from the Commonwealth until the federal investigation was over? You handed over a few scraps, and the few scraps that you did hand over were so damning. Hey, Alan. Most vehicle pedestrian accidents happen at night. If you don't want me to say that, I won't. And the Free Karen readers go, well, he did say that in testimony or voir dire. Yeah, how are you going to prepare a day before they testify? How is that going to help you a day before they testify? Not much. Voir dires are mainly pointless. Or else you wouldn't withhold the discovery. The voir dires were actually a remedy that made these things fair. They wouldn't do this. They wouldn't withhold discovery on practically every witness in this case. This is a dirty trick done by the defense. And of course, it's so rich that Karen Reed is now accusing the Commonwealth of doing it when they amend a report. Oh my gosh. Because that's what they're basing their whole defense on, it sounds like. I mean, this is a full meltdown from Karen Reed.
That's the definition of an ambush.
Scientists.
Okay, just let me go back a little bit. You can just see her say that. She goes, we didn't get these reports. That's the definition of an ambush. Just watch her freak out without me yapping through it.
On May 8th. That was only shared with us on May 11th. And now we find out from this witness that Attorney Brennan knew this report was coming the whole time. That's the definition of an ambush.
Scientists from a DNA lab in Virginia testified that DNA belonging to O'Keefe and two others was found on Reed's taillight. And a hair found on the right rear quarter panel of the vehicle was a potential match for O'Keefe or any relative on his mother's side.
And if the maternal nephew lived in the same residence.
Right, if the maternal nephew. Now they're going to blame this hair on the back of the bumper on the nephew. The nephew used the back bumper as a pillow. Isn't that true? No. No, it's not. How do you think it got there? How do you think it froze on the car? I mean, isn't the free Karen Reed argument that hair would never stick on the back of the car? And that's why it was planted there? But now we're supposed to believe that the nephew in just normal weather, no snow, somehow got that on the car when he was at a friend's house that day and out and about. Wasn't near Karen's car. We're supposed to believe it stayed on there for days. But I mean, do you see how the Ted Daniel, innocence fraudster, Ted Daniel, Mr. Pink Shirt or pink tie or whatever the heck he wore on the first day of Karen Reed's trial, is going to be like, yeah, it's just as likely to be the nephew. Yeah, come on, guys. This is really weak evidence. When it's really strong evidence, and the witness was like, yeah, not likely, not really likely that it's the nephew, but okay, nice try. We know it's right. Oh, kitties. Thanks for gifting 5 memberships. They will be handed out at random. Congrats to everyone who gets one. Enjoy the new emojis I put up. I think there's a Justice for John O'Keefe one. There's a Bunny Boiler one. There's a Hank Brennan one in shadow. Check him out.
And had access to the same SUV. Couldn't exclude him either, right? You can't tell this jury how the hair got to where it was found, correct?
Sustained.
Shanon Burgess will be back on the stand. His boss is also expected to testify as the prosecution tries to create a minute-by-minute timeline of what law enforcement says happened to John O'Keefe. Reporting in Dedham, I'm Ted Daniel for your local station, Boston 25 News.
There's innocence fraudster Ted Daniel spinning it for Karen Reed. I mean, not like, holy cow, Karen Reed says she knows what time John O'Keefe died. We all think he died. She's like, well, he died. Well, we think he died. Do you notice how she corrects herself? Let's watch it one more time, shall we? We think he died. He died. So we were fighting this morning. That's not a really helpful thing either. Say, I think he died.
I do. I mean, I'll tell you, John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. So we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30 on the early morning of January 29th.
So this is not synced. This is afterwards. There's the Glare YouTuber, the woman beater, sitting next to Karen Reed's mother, and babysitting William Reed, who's been babysat by a guard the whole time for some action. I'm not convinced it was just winking at a juror or staring down the juror. I think it was something else much more aggressive and disturbing of the court, and the jury, that he has a babysitter with him every day. And, Judge Cannoni does nearly nothing ever. So it had to be pretty extreme for her to get a court guard to sit next to him. And she stands up and guards the jury every time they get up or come in from William Reed. I mean, we've heard reports that they've gone after the O'Keefes and exchanged words with the O'Keefe family, the grieving family of John O'Keefe. I've also heard reports that Judge Cannoni, the Reeds, Karen Reed and her family have asked that they keep out of the courtroom Peggy O'Keefe support people, her friends in court who've come to support her, and also came to support Kaylee, John's niece. I mean, I think that's a violation of victims' rights laws, but I don't know. I don't know if they are officially her support person or not. I don't know if she had that designated. But it will tell you what I've been saying all along about this Judge Cannoni, is that her interests are entirely with Karen Reed and her family's feelings. Even that said, she's going to have a babysitter for Daddy Reed for the rest of the trial? Really? I've never seen anything like this trial. Anyway, let's listen. Let's listen one more time. So she says, we're fighting this morning. Not good. Not good for Karen Reed. We know that from the text messages, but it hammers it home for the jury. They missed that.
I do. I mean, I'll tell you, John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. So we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30 on the early morning of January 29th.
Devastating. So she's saying, yeah, his testimony is correct. Innocence Fraud Watch did a really excellent blog, Killer Karen Reed Retrial, based on the totality of evidence, psychopathic murderer sadistic personality. Her 12:41:35 voicemail appears intentional, including powerful niece testimony. So at 12:31:47, off-duty Boston police officer John O'Keefe falls to the ground on the edge of the darkened corner of the lawn of 34 Fairview Road near a cluster of trees. The Apple Health data of John O'Keefe's cell phone suggested 12:31:16 was the last time John's phone moved before it was found by his friend Carrie Roberts on the ground underneath where John had been laying at around 6:36 a.m. Innocence Fraud Watch has done such a good job nailing down these time periods. Note, the prosecution expert states that 7 minutes before the collision, Mr. O'Keefe's phone was 21 to 29 seconds ahead. Okay? So if his phone's at 12:31:16, if you minus 29 seconds, you get 12:31:47 a.m. After reversing into John O'Keefe with her Lexus SUV, Karen Reed fled her crime scene, but waited around 1 minute and 45 seconds before she chose to call John O'Keefe's phone at 12:33:35. Why and where exactly was Karen Reed in her SUV when she chose to call John O'Keefe's phone at 12:33:35? Karen repeatedly stated to witnesses, I was not supposed to stay in Canton last night, meaning John O'Keefe's house. So why didn't she return to her home instead of John O'Keefe's home? So that's what Innocence Fraud is watching, is asking too. So why didn't she drive to Mansfield after leaving John O'Keefe mortally wounded on the ground? The answer is simple. Karen Reed was setting in place her defense. It is not known when exactly Karen Reed chose to drive to John O'Keefe's house after fleeing her crime scene, but the evidence suggests she was in John's driveway at Meadows Avenue by 12:36:39. So there's an intentional 12:41:35 voicemail. John O'Keefe's Ring camera would have recorded Karen Reed driving into his driveway, so she deleted this video. And based on the totality of the evidence and Karen Reed's sadistic personality, her 12:41:35 voicemail to John, as she referred to it, was made intentionally as part of her defense plan. So that's let me see if I can find it. It's the phone call that was shown today where she talks about it today in court. One second. Let me just find it so I can stick it in right here. Okay. Here we go. This is where she describes this phone call. I mean, she describes this moment when she pulls into the garage and she pulls in, not the phone call. She describes this moment when she pulls into the garage, and it's captured in this phone call.
So
Not this one. It's right after here.
approach from the north, we actually missed the turn, and John's.
So here she's saying we did a 3-point turn. Here's another devastating clip that, sorry, I forgot it. I forgot it after the bombshell today. This is devastating too. She's saying, yeah, I took I did a turn after we made the wrong turn. I did a 3-point turn in someone's driveway. Yeah, that was me. That incident that the Commonwealth expert picked up on, that was me. I did it right around that time too.
Says to me, it's Parody, we just passed it, it's back there, it's on my left. I said, all right, so I pull into a driveway, back out onto the street, which I now own as Cedar Crest, and then come from the north onto Fairview.
Like the next play, clip 25.
This is where she talks about why isn't there any ring camera evidence of me coming home? Because it's clearly, you can tell when I connected it to the Wi-Fi. You can hear me.
At 12:41, I leave a voicemail to John, where you can clearly, and this will probably be played on Monday, you can clearly hear me pull into John's garage. You can hear my car sensors beeping as I come close to the sides of the garage. And then you hear the car go off, and then you hear the slight ding, ding, ding as I open the door, shut the door. I had high heels on that night. You hear me walk in, go into the stairs up into the kitchen, shut the door, and you hear me walk in the kitchen. It's like a full minute long. That's at 12:41.
You know what I was thinking about that?
And finally,
I have a question, and then finally the bombshell clip. Should we watch it again? Maybe. I have a question for you guys. Do you think that the one juror is going to remember that she never describes taking off her shoes? You're going to hear me taking off my shoes because it was John's house, and he had a rule that you had to take off your shoes. Never did she say she takes off her shoes, and never do you hear that, her taking off her high heels. You know, otherwise she would say, you hear me taking off my high heels and them clunking on the ground. You think a juror is going to pick up on that? One juror? I wouldn't say all 12 or even but I wonder if one juror is going to pick up on that. And why it's significant is because it shows that Karen Reed knows that John's rules no longer apply. He's no longer on the planet to enforce his rules, or he's incapacitated and can't enforce his rules. Either one. Take your pick. But she seems to think his time of death is right around the time that she hit him. Which says that she knew he was mortally wounded. Really dark.
clip 24.
I do. I mean, I'll tell you, John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. So we think he died right around 12:25, 12:30. on the early morning of January 29th.
Okay. So how many times have I played this? How many times can I play this bombshell? So just curious what you guys are going to think of that. But back to Innocence Fraud Watch's excellent blog. If you're not subscribed, highly recommend you do. The link is in the description of this episode. And it comes, I really like it because it comes right to your email. So anytime she writes anything new, you get an email notification. Risk taker. Karen Reed has proven time and time again with her innocence fraud public relations spin campaign that she is risk-taking, reckless, and an impulsive sensation seeker. Several clinical descriptions of psychopathy suggest a link to risk-taking, including sensation-seeking, recklessness, and impulsivity. Karen Reed took a risk driving to John O'Keefe's house on her own, knowing John's niece was home and possibly still awake. John O'Keefe's niece testified on May 14, 2025, that after replying to her uncle JJ, John O'Keefe, to let him know she was okay, as was John's normal routine, she fell asleep at around midnight. It is possible Karen Reed knew that John O'Keefe had not long before texted his niece, so she would not have known when she pulled into the driveway if John's niece was asleep. But by waiting for over 5 minutes before pulling into the garage, it gave Karen Reed more time to scope out the house and decide what to do next. Karen Reed waited over 13 minutes before texting John O'Keefe's phone at 12:55:31 a.m. See you later. 12:55:50. 19 seconds later, I'm going home. 12:59:24. Karen Reed chose to leave the following mindless and deliberately abusive voice message on John O'Keefe's phone. John, I'm here with your fucking kids. Nobody knows where the fuck you are. You fucking pervert. There's my imitation of Karen Reed's voicemail. Excuse my language. Karen Reed's voicemails and text messages to John O'Keefe's cell phone were not those of a drunken, jealous individual pretending to not know what had happened or where John was. They were the actions of a cunning and calculated killer who was setting up her defense and went all out to cover her tracks. But she slipped up many times and very quickly got caught. Listen to Hank Brennan in the video clips below.
Was in that car, that Lexus, it didn't move because his healthcare data is not moving. It's not moving until 12:31:56. At 12:31:56, he begins to move. He will have 20 seconds before he falls. 20 seconds. He gets out of the car, the Lexus, and in that 20 seconds, you'll hear that user initiated. He looks at the phone, at the text message he then gave. It's now 12:32:09. He closes the phone the last time. It will be the last time he uses that phone. From the waterfall bar, you see it. And at that time, 12:32:09, last user, he has 7 more seconds to move before he lies dormant the rest of the night. We'll also have the information from the defendant's Lexus black box. The box run differently, there's a 30-second variance, but it's right in the heart of that time. And we'll see in the data at that time, when he makes his last movements with the phone, is when her car leaves 34 feet at least, stops, neutral, and then shoots into reverse with the tire spinning right towards him. Right where he went out. You'll know they're arguing because the next morning she tells a firefighter, I'm sad because our last moments were fighting. She drives away. They said she's made later statements that when she left, he didn't look mortally wounded. He lied on the ground on top of his phone, light dusting of snow, the snow now picking up. And he's just there. It's 12:37. Now, when he's in the car, Before it gets to Fairview, the battery temperature of that phone is 77 degrees. 77 degrees in the warm car. Now that he's been outside the car for 5 minutes, drops to 70 degrees. She drives to his house. She makes a phone call at 12:33 after she's left Fairview. She calls again at 12:33 and leaves a message. You'll hear it. And you will hear the anger and rage in her voice. She leaves a message. John, I fucking hate you. Pardon my language. You will hear the simmering. And she leaves that message. He lies on the side of the road. He gets another text message that's unanswered. Where are you? 12:45. Battery temperature, 61 degrees. So he gets almost 40 calls from the defendant that night. His phone rings, but he never answers. You'll hear from an expert that the light never initiates, the healthcare data never moves. John alone was only again in his phone. At 12:53, cell phone drops. It's almost 60 degrees. 12:59, the defendant leaves another message on John's phone. Now, she hasn't spoken to anybody. Nobody has spoken to her, but her message is out. You'll learn the message says, John, nobody knows where you are. And this is where the plot in the cover-up begins. The evidence will make clear that she knew he was there. She did not call 911. She did not go back to him. She did not leave an anonymous note. She left. The night wears on. It's now 1.
Is anyone else watching? I'm sorry about the volume being low on this, but is anyone else watching Karen Reed's face? All I keep thinking is like, does anyone else get the feeling like, you got it, you got me? That's what I get, like, caught. That's what I get, the feeling, caught. And the wheels are starting to probably spin on how to get out of this. This is about as masterful as an opening statement as you're going to see. Went over it the other night in my live stream. But it's always such a pleasure to watch it.
107. Battery temperature 55 degrees. 114, she calls her mother. No answer. 114:53. Battery temperature 50 degrees. The defendant had healthcare data on her phone as well. You'll hear that it stops around that time. You later learn that she admits to falling asleep with passing out. But then she wakes. 5 o'clock, she is frantic. She wakes up John's niece and she is unintelligible. She is yelling, she's screaming, she asks for the niece to call Jen McCabe. She calls Jen McCabe, and you'll hear Jen McCabe recount. Out of deep sleep, she wakes up and she hears, Jen, 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 screaming Jen's name.
Who does it better? Who does it better, Hank Brennan or me? How many times have I done it? Jen, 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 Gary, Gary, Gary. So when they drove over, she put her head, so she was in the back seat. Carrie Roberts is driving. Jen McCabe is in the passenger seat. And she's in between the two seats, and they're between their ears yelling, Jen, 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 Gary, Gary, Gary. All the way to 34 Fairview. Jen, Jen, Gary, Gary, Jen, Jen. I mean, can you imagine what a nightmare? You're already traumatized. And the reason I think she was doing that is she had to act like she was hysterical, out of her mind, right? Because she's starting her cover-up plan, not talking to the police of getting sectioned. She also has to look surprised and hysterical. So she's starting that. And also to put them in a fear state of mind so that they're not thinking correctly, so that they won't remember minute details. And it really worked with Carrie. It didn't work with Jen McCabe, who was an excellent witness, who remembered pretty much everything ironclad. And thankfully, also thanks to Peggy O'Keefe, who told them to write a timeline. She seemed to be really hip to how manipulative and scheming Karen Reed is.
John's dead. Hang up the phone. Jen McCabe. Called back. And then she, what's going on? And she told, well, I left him at the waterfall. At the beginning of the cover. She told Jen McCabe, I left him at the waterfall. Jen called back and says, he saw you up front. You did leave at the waterfall. She hung up. He then minutes later calls another person, Terry Roberts, a friend of John O'Keefe. Someone who's not friends with the defendant, but they know because they helped raise the kids when they interacted. She had nothing to do with the night before, wasn't at the bars, was home with her family. She calls her and says, I think John had to buy a fly. I think he's dead. Now, Terry, with that information, calls 911. She calls hospitals, you can hear her voice. She's concerned. Okay. And then she gets another call from the defendant. And she tells the defendant, come to my house. I will help you look for him. And the defendant says, I was so drunk last night, I don't remember anything. Waiting for her to arrive, she learns she doesn't arrive. Instead, the defendant goes to Jen McCabe's house. Terry Roberts, the other friend, then goes to Jen McCabe's house, pulled behind the car. And when she does, she's on Bluetooth, and she can hear the defendant saying, my taillight's broken, my taillight's broken. And she looks, and the snow pack in the right taillight, she can see a piece of the taillight missing. The defendant desperately wants to go to 34th Fairview Road. Terry Roberts takes over and says, we're going to go back to John's house. Maybe he's in the house when you didn't see him. So both cars, driven by Terry Roberts and then Jen McCabe, with the defendant, go back to John O'Keefe's house. You'll see a ring video where you see them go into the house and they look around, and you'll hear about the woman, Jen and Terry, enlisted into this task. Look for John O'Keefe, they cannot find him. And then when Terry Roberts comes into a room, she sees, rather than looking, the defendant simply standing there, staring at the wall.
By the way, what has happened? What has happened to Victoria George? She was like the most annoying part of day one. The juror, the alternative juror who was pregnant during the first trial, who apparently looked like she was never paying attention to the evidence in this case. That's what one journalist said about her. What happened to her? She just she just got discarded by Karen Reed, and she's no longer useful. So, I mean, this is, I think, the whole thing. Yeah. How much longer do we have? We only have a minute more. You want to hear a minute more of opening? Or should I move on to the next video about clock drifting? I don't know. Let me see how you guys are doing. I'll wait till you guys catch up with me. Thank you for saying I do it better. I definitely couldn't do an opening statement like this with no notes. Let me get to some super chats while you tell me what I should do. Play the rest of this or move on. Let's see, where am I? I'm here. Am I here? Her own words could very well land her behind bars, Heisenberg said, and the data is even more powerful here. She has nobody to blame but herself with this. Agree. Mandy says, thank you, Heisenberg. Mandy says, Strong says, how could nobody know where the F. John was when Karen Reed claims in another interview she saw him go into the house? It makes no sense. Great point. It's Karen Reed logic. You just have to kind of believe in a nonsensical story that doesn't work with the evidence. You just kind of have to believe Karen, whatever story she's telling at the moment and whatever defense narrative her defense is pushing at the moment. Heisenberg says she knew when he died and didn't call 911 not too long after his last movement. Her first phone call to him was literally seconds from that moment. Thank you for driving that home. That was really one of the salient points of this testimony. Right. Instead, she's starting the cover up, pretending not to know where he is, instead of calling 911, because it's always about Karen Reed. So she can act out and be aggressive. And and show, her power over John, that she can remove him from the planet or teach him a lesson or whatever she wanted to do. Looks like she wanted to kill him from all the evidence we've seen. She may have been fantasizing about this. I mean, if you have a boyfriend who doesn't wear a coat, you have to be thinking something really bad could happen to him if he got incapacitated out in the cold, or say a nor'easter, or say the seventh worst storm Massachusetts has ever seen, which it was. This nor'easter. Kelly Panton, thanks so much for the super sticker. Appreciate it. Mandy Strong says, I've watched AJ's opening 10 times now, and everything he says has already been proven to be lies, every word. I'm curious. I have to go back and listen to it where he talks about the door opening and Karen Reed opening her door. Curious if we're ever going to see anything about Karen Reed's door opening, or I thought we were going to hear about his seatbelts and things like that, those kind of events, but we didn't hear about them. I don't know if they got edited out for time or what. Yeah, I would love to do an interview with Hank Brennan. Who wouldn't want to interview Hank Brennan? Yeah. Play the rest. Okay, everyone says play. I don't know. Not everyone. Robert, you're everyone. Says play the rest. I think, okay, I'd like to hear the rest. Yeah, okay. It's about a minute and a half.
At that point, the defendant insists they got to go back to Fairview Road. They decide to take one car. Carrie Roberts is taking charge. She's going to drive. They leave Miss Reed's Lexus and Josh's driveway, and they drive back towards 34 Fairview Road. There it is blizzard-like conditions. It is dark. They can barely see a thing. And when they get close to the edge of 34 Fairview, you hear the defendant start to scream, "There he is!" Both women look and they can't see anything. She starts kicking the door. The defendant's kicking the door. "Let me out!" Carrie Roberts stops the car and lets her out, and she sees the defendant run exactly to where John O'Keefe is in the darkness. That's where she left him. Carrie gets out of the car, starts to walk towards where the defendant is, and she sees the defendant lying on a body. She can't tell who it is because the face is still covered with snow. And she comes over and looks, and she wipes off the snow from John O'Keefe's face. She realizes it's one of her best friends in the world is John O'Keefe. And she starts to try to do first aid. They start to move him, and coincidentally at 6:06, when they start to move him, the cold air hits that cell phone battery. It drops from 50 to 43 degrees. And they try, Jen McCabe calls 911. And that's when a police officer arrives, firefighter Nuttall and his crew. And when they lift him, that cell phone battery that is shut down to 37 degrees, Carrie Roberts picks it up and puts it in her pocket, and it immediately starts to warm. As she moves to help get a data, showing movement starts again.
Okay. Oh, such a good opening statement. Let me get to this before it starts playing. Okay. So then Hank Brennan, this is him on the clock drift. Okay. So this is the end of the blog. It's about 4 minutes, 19 seconds on the difference between times, the things that they argued was a Rule 14 violation, meaning a discovery violation, that they amended the time and they got the time drift exactly correct. But
the Commonwealth, just like the defense is entitled, continues to work on their case and study their case as time goes on. This issue, the relevance of this issue, has been clear throughout the case, including my opening statement. And the issue is that clocks are different. There is a clock in a Lexus that runs on a different time than that of an iPhone. And if you recall in my opening statement, I talked about the fact that there are variances between those clocks. So instead of a moment that coincides happening at the precise second, sometimes there's a variance of time between the two. So the Lexus clock could be at a variance with an iPhone, but the event still could happen at the same time, given the clocks have different times. The defense provided a report by a person by the name of Mr. DeSorga, a noted expert witness who they've listed as a witness they may potentially call. Mr. DeSorga wrote a report, and in the report, he suggested, based on his analysis, that Mr. O'Keefe's phone always ran late. That means if the text stream data, the black box data from the car, has a event at 12:32:38, 12:31:38, and Mr. O'Keefe's last movements were 12:32:16, last user interaction 12:32:09, there is a variance between those times. We asked our expert to review their expert's report to see if he was accurate, that the variance means that these times would never align. And that's what he did. He studied the data, he studied the ways, he studied the Lexus black box relative to the time. Doesn't change anything, doesn't change the data whatsoever, just adds to the time. What he learned, from his opinion, is that Mr. DeSorga was wrong. He used information from different phones, not recognizing the items that these timelines came from, and that his time estimates are wrong. So then he looked at the time.
So two things happened. If they were trying to exploit a wrong difference, right, by the Commonwealth, that pulled the wool under from the defense's rug. Okay, right. Also, so that pull the wool from the rug. Did I just say that? Is that even an expression? That is an expression, right? Pull the wool over your eyes, pull the rug out from under them. I'm mixing metaphors here, or mixing sayings. So what it also does is it makes their defense expert. This is why it was so important to discredit this expert, because they want the jury to believe their expert, right? But it's going to be really hard to believe their expert when Karen Reed has already told them that the Commonwealth's expert is right and they're wrong. And they brought in his report, his opinion on it. He thinks he's wrong. So they can't go with this expert. I don't know if they're going to present him or not. That his timing is all off. Also, I think Karen Reed thought she had a really good case. I get the feeling, it's just my feeling about this defense team, that Inetti is not really working on this case. Jackson is not really working much on this case. They're working at about 50% capacity. Remember, they're not getting paid because they got a hung jury first time round. I believe they don't get paid double for another trial. They were paid a flat fee for taking on this case. And now they seem to be giving the heavy lifting to Alessi, who's hugely unlikable. I mean, the jury, you have to remember that if we feel resentful towards Alessi for how indulgent he is with how much time he takes up and how he repeats himself and how self-indulgent he is with these crosses, the jury some people on the jury have to be getting resentful. And then there's Alan Jackson. Every time he gets up, every person he cross-examines is public enemy number one. Except Peggy O'Keefe, don't get me started on that. How bad that looked for anyone who's been around the block. But this is a young jury, so maybe they fall for this. Sorry for your loss nonsense. Trying to score points with the jury. They're all under 45, I hear, which also worries me. But, I mean, you just see Hank Brennan in the closing statement in this argument, you realize how many different things, how many different disciplines come into being a lawyer. You have to be a storyteller. You have to, to be this kind of lawyer. You don't have to be this kind of lawyer. There's a lot of lawyers but most lawyers sit behind a desk and don't try cases. But for trial lawyers, you have to be a storyteller. You have to be part psychologist, part storyteller. part master persuader. Just part politician. Be likable. I mean, it's really takes in so many different things.
Of the event of the ignition on and off, and he compared that to the Waze data. And when he did, he found that he could identify what the app.
And let me just thank Janet. Thank you so much. Did I thank you? Jack D 65. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Tanya, nice to see you. Did they underestimate Brennan? I don't think so. Karen Reed said they're playing hardball. But I mean, have you ever seen? I've never seen an opening statement done like that. All no notes. Just pure telling a story perfectly. No ums or ahs from the. Just like perfect presentation. I've never seen that. Telling a story from beginning to end. I think his timings are get a little wacky at times, but other than that, I mean, I just never seen such a perfect opening statement. It's like a preview of the trial, an opening statement. It's like a trailer for a movie. Here's what we aim to show. Here's what we aim to prove. Heisenberg says her father literally heard his own daughter today say she knew when he died. I have zero sympathy for the Reed family, and honestly, they make me sick. I agree, but they're very much alike. They're two psychopathic peas in a pod. I mean, I've been saying that since the beginning. Very dark. Something really dark and disturbing about. I mean, for him to say, like, I know how to act. I played that yesterday. I know how to act. Of course, I didn't just go in with Karen Reed and get the murder vehicle and get the few possessions in 15 minutes and not say anything to the grieving O'Keefe family with grieving grandchildren there. Of course, we weren't just concerned about ourselves. I know how to act. Me who's being babysat sat through the entire trial because I don't know how to act. I know how to act. What? I had coffee with them and he told me about their set. They wanted to talk about their flooring. Their son just died, but they wanted to talk about how much they spent on their floors with me and have coffee. I mean, give me a break. Do I need to play that again? Has everybody seen that? Do I need to play that again? That guy is a liar. Great. Back to this. We're about halfway through.
Actual differential was, instead of guessing that it was within the 30-second window, it was somewhere around 21 to 25 seconds. And that 7 minutes before the collision, Mr. O'Keefe's phone was 21 to 29 seconds ahead, which means you subtract that time, which puts it in the same variance that we've been arguing from the beginning, that the collision occurred at the same moments when Mr. O'Keefe's last had user interaction, and that reconciles with the data. It does not change the text screen data or the black box information on the car whatsoever. It does not change ARCA's analysis whatsoever. We received this report on May 8th. I was surprised to receive it. I welcomed it. We turned it over on May 8th. There was no delay. It's been a week now the defense has had this information. And so this is not an attempt to align anything. While it may reconcile or identify that variance more closely, it doesn't change any data whatsoever. And so this is not a Rule 14 violation. The effort was in response to disclosures that we believe were wrong by the defense expert, and it is clarified and it is favorable for us. And so we should be able to use it.
Did you intend to use it in your case in chief or only if this witness disorder? I don't remember reading that name, so I don't know how to pronounce it.
My case in chief, because we now have this available data. As I said, this wasn't ambush, isn't something that we sat on. It was in response. Fortunately, we received their expert report, which caused us to focus more closely. And now that we've identified that variance, rather than having an open variance of 30 seconds, we should not be precluded from favorable information that has been provoked by a report by the defense.
Karen Reed's like, why didn't we just hide discovery with this witness too? Then we wouldn't have had to. That we wouldn't have had to change our strategy up when we realize our defense witness is wrong. One second. Minerna, thank you. Sultana, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate it. But here's Daddy Reed. I'm going to end on this. Here's Daddy Reed for those that, this is from Boundless Millennial. For those that missed it, he put it together really nicely.
Did you say what you were with your health vision? And then on the niece said that no condolences for her.
I certainly did.
So did you hear them? The niece, yeah, I certainly gave my condolences. They were there for 15 minutes. So originally Paul O'Keefe testified that they were there for around 20 minutes to a half an hour. They were there for 15 minutes to get the murder vehicle. He's like, of course, I certainly did. We had coffee and they talked about their flooring. Listen to this nonsense. It's a liar.
I knew John O'Keefe. I had been in his company on several occasions. I was there Christmas Eve. I had,
Right. Yeah, well, nobody's disputing that you knew him or that you met him. We're just saying that with the Reeds, everything is about themselves. They don't care about anyone else's feelings, or else they wouldn't have, her and her lawyers wouldn't have spearheaded a witness harassment campaign. They cared about the feelings of others. It's always about them. Either you're going down or I'm going down. Jen McCabe, right, Karen Reed? Isn't that what you said?
I knew the niece, I knew the nephew, and first thing I did, went in and said, I'm sorry to both John O'Keefe Sr. and Mrs. John O'Keefe, Peg O'Keefe. I mean, that's just common decency, and I would not have overlooked that. And I sat down and had a cup of.
Right? What's common decency? Where's your common decency when you're screaming at Alan Jackson to bring Jennifer McCabe to her knees? For doing what? For helping your daughter in a time of crisis. Find her friend. And the boyfriend who she's just murdered. Find him when Karen Reed knows exactly her mock finding. Excuse my language. She went on your fake trip to find John O'Keefe where she knew exactly where he was. So she could be a witness to his hysteria and to also be another character to mix it all up in there, her and Carrie Roberts. Otherwise, who saw John O'Keefe last? Karen Reed. Who dropped him off? Karen Reed. Whose taillight is broken? Karen Reed's. There's no one else to blame. So she's got to bring in some personalities to mix it all up. Have them call 911. Cast a little suspicion on John O'Keefe's dear friends, who she resented. So where's your decency when you were screaming at Alan Jackson to bring Jen McCabe to her knees for the crime of helping your daughter out, and the gift that she got, trauma for the rest of her life, scars that will never heal. What a gift.
Coffee at the island.
His mother leans over the kitchen island and says to me, I think he looks like he got hit by a car. He looks like he got hit by a car.
And I had a.
That never happened, according to Peggy O'Keefe. And I believe her before I believe lying Karen Reed.
Conversation with John O'Keefe Sr. And we were talking, kind of nervous conversation. He said, that they had water damage in the kitchen and they had repaired the kitchen flooring and the like at a cost of $75,000. He was hurting. And
yeah, because that's what you talk about when you're hurting. You talk about your flooring, the water damage. Tell me within 15 minutes of arriving, you got the vehicle, you wiped off the snow off the vehicle, except the right tail light. I mean, tell me where in that 15 minutes there's time to do all this, have a cup of coffee, etc. They were there for 15 minutes. It's never happened.
And I was hurting for him. And my daughter was crying, and she hugged Kaylee, and they were
crying like we've never seen before, and hugging like we've never seen before.
both crying. And
since we've never seen one tear from Karen Reed, not one upset moment. She laughs through his autopsy pictures. They're a real feeling bunch, the Reed family.
the rest I'll reveal if Attorney Brennan wants to call me.
Yeah, that's the fake story. So, Hank Brennan, just a warning to you, I'm going to lie up on the stand, which I told you he would. I told you he was going to lie up on the stand. I said, if they call him, he's going to lie. So that's the kind of dark personality he is. He's a risk taker like his daughter. He'll risk lying to protect his daughter.
I'm on the list, so we'll see if he wants to call me.
That is the...
Yeah, so if you want to call me, I'm going to lie. Just, that's where we're going to end it for today. Thanks so much for listening. But before I go, some people to thank. Amanda D, thank you for becoming a Patreon member. Susan Hicks, Carol Holderman, thank you so much for supporting the show via Venmo. Great way to support the show. Link is in the description of this episode. You can also buy me a coffee or become a Patreon member. I'll be giving out more memberships during my live stream tomorrow morning, starting a little before 9 o'clock. Tune in there with me. If you want to support the show, once again, links are in the description of this and pretty much every episode. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow morning for, what is it, day 20 of Karen Reed Trial 2. Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it, Mary Beth Brokowski. Excuse me for mispronouncing your name. I have a tendency to do that if I did. All right. Have a great night, everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Thanks for listening.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, Jen, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim.